All right, and we're back here on another special Couch Coach Live. Our ninth annual NFL preview continues on, and we got our guy Jordan from representing sportscoop.com, representing the Denver Broncos. What's going on, Jordan?
Not a whole lot. I mean, it's crazy to think that training camps open up here on the 26th, and then my focus is on obviously with the Denver Broncos, the training camp battles. Always interesting. With Denver, it always seems like there is one guy who is under the radar, free agent, college free agent that makes the team undrafted. So it's always interesting. And of course, we'll get to it in a second, but definitely a better feeling than I had last year.
Yes, indeed. And one of the things I always like with Jordan, definitely during the 2021 season, they remind me of my team, now the Washington Commanders, but then it was the Washington football team. And I always looked at us as far as great defensive teams, but we were lacking a quarterback. So let's talk about the offseason. And then also, and we also know that the team's biggest acquisition was the two-time Richard Tanner Dispatch Player of the Year and Russell Wilson. So talk about the offseason and then also, your thoughts on Russell Wilson.
Well, of course, we fired Vic Fangio, and he was with the Broncos coach for the past 3 years, with a record of 19-30. Really didn't get the results. Like you said, great defense. He was a great defensive-minded coach, but the offense sputtered. We obviously didn't have a quarterback. We tried Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, there's a whole list since Peyton Manning. But then we got Nathaniel Hackett, who is the Green Bay Packers offensive coordinator. And I like this move just because we were so defensive-minded with our last two hires. We had Vance Joseph gone after two or 3 years. Vic Fangio gone after 3 years. So it was like, this is a new regime to have a offensive coordinator as the head coach. We hadn't had that since Gary Kubiak left in 2016. But of course, you look at it, the big story we talked about it was the Russell Wilson trade. But before or after that, we actually got Randy Gregory, the linebacker from Dallas. You're familiar with him, of course.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm sure you're happy he's out of the division. I mean, it was a $70 million contract. So I think that's for 4 years. So great defensive guy. 74 tackles, 16 and a half sacks. So they're really hoping that, we lost Von Miller, obviously, to a trade to the, I almost wanted to say St. Louis Rams, but they're in LA. And that kind of left a void in the linebacker position. We thought Bradley Chubb would be that way, to take over for Von Miller. He hasn't been healthy. So Randy Gregory is going to step in if he's healthy. I saw that he might be on the, physical on the PUP list, the physically unable to participate to start the training camp, and I'm not worried about that. But of course, we also have a new owner, and it's Rob Walton, who I think the next week they should be voting to make him the full-time owner. Obviously, the NFL has to approve of it, and he bought it for $4.65 billion. But back to Russell Wilson. I mean, I came on, the show right as the trade. I think you were the one that broke it to me. I was like, we got Russell Wilson? Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm so excited that we actually have a franchise quarterback since Peyton Manning. I mean, with Peyton Manning, we won the division every single year. We went to 2 Super Bowls, won one of them. And with Russell Wilson, it's just the same excitement I have. He's a guy that's going to look down the field, has a strong arm than we've had in years past. Of course, he'll look at the defense and, get us in the right play. And luckily for him, he's so mobile. We saw that with Seattle. So, I mean, I'm very excited to see that we got him and we, traded quite a bit for him. But that's what you have to do. We traded tight end Noah Fant, quarterback Drew Lock. And if anyone's watched Drew Lock, I was a very big advocate of him, but he kind of didn't, produce at the NFL level. Too many turnovers. It was just anything that could go wrong with him did. And we lost defensive end Shelby Harris. I was kind of disappointed with Shelby Harris leaving because I loved Shelby Harris. He kind of reminded me of Randy Gregory, a guy that even though he's a defensive tackle, a guy who could actually stop the run, get to the quarterback, and actually he can, knock passes down and get his hands on the ball. I was just disappointed we let him go, but that's what you have to, give up for Russell Wilson. Of course, we gave up a lot of draft picks, the 2022 and 2023 first-round draft picks. For the next few years, I won't have a first-round draft pick. A 2022 and 2023 second-round pick, and a fifth-round pick next year, or this past year. I mean, it was a large haul for him, and I realized that, but that's what you have to give up to get one Russell Wilson to be your franchise quarterback.
And I think it'll definitely be worth it. Getting a guy of that magnitude, it's going to pay big dividends early on. So, yeah.
It really will. I mean, you guys went out and we've talked about this and joked with this. You have a new quarterback, Carson Wentz.
Yeah. Yeah, so hey, that's how it happens, So going into this season, what is your biggest headline?
We can sit here and talk about Nathaniel Hackett and the biggest story of Russell Wilson, but I think even bigger than that is the expectations here in Denver with Russell Wilson. We want to get to the Super Bowl, or at least get into the playoffs. I mean, the goal is to ultimately win the Super Bowl, but we want to get into the playoffs, and we know our division is tough with the Kansas City Chiefs, the LA Chargers, and, of course, the Las Vegas Raiders. But the truth is now that we have a franchise quarterback, we're thinking playoffs here. Basically, the last time we were in the playoffs was when Peyton Manning held that Lombardi trophy in Super Bowl 50. After that, it's just been so downhill. 2017, 5-11. 2018, 6-10. 2019, 7-9. 2020, 5-11. The year that I'm missing is 2016 on that list. That was actually our best record at 9-7. Unfortunately, we missed the playoffs by one game. So the biggest headline going into this season is we need to get to the playoffs with one Russell Wilson. I think that has to be the goal. I'm not thinking Super Bowl, but I'm definitely thinking let's get to the playoffs as the wild card team. I don't think we're going to beat out the LA Chargers. They've got a great quarterback in Justin Herbert. We're not going to beat out Patrick Mahomes. I think Kansas City actually wins the division. I think we're better than the Las Vegas Raiders. Of course, they have a new head coach, our old head coach, and Josh McDaniels. So I thought that was a terrible hire by the Raiders. Maybe he's learned something from his experience with the Denver Broncos. But the fact of the matter is it's playoffs or bust this year.
Yeah, big time. But So, your thoughts on the offense?
Well, of course, we've talked about it. We have the franchise quarterback, Russell Wilson. The thing about it is we have weapons on this offense for him to be successful. You've got Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. I know people have called him a little bit of a bust, but we have to remember that this is only going to be his third year in the league. And he's also had the injury history last year where he missed 7 games. But the fact of the matter is he's still one of the best route runners at least in his draft class. Then we have Tim Patrick, the tight ends, who I can't even, when I came onto the show, I couldn't even say our tight end last time, but now I've got it down. It's Greg Dulcich from UCLA, and I'm kind of excited about him because he's a pass-catching tight end. My main question for him, though, is can he pass block? That's why we got rid of Noah Fant, because he couldn't. And then we have Albert O, who's going to take the place of Noah Fant. The running game, it's interesting because it's the same running backs as we had last year. Javonte Williams, who I was very impressed with him last year. He's one of those guys, especially the way he's built, that it's one guy can't take him down. You got to take a couple of guys for him to take him down. I think his average yards per rush last year was 4.4 yards, and he also had 900 rushing yards. So not bad for a rookie. I was really disappointed that they brought back Melvin Gordon. The reason why is he's a great runner. Don't get me wrong. He had close to 1,000 yards last year, but it's the fact that he fumbled. And we saw it in the game we played you guys. 2 fumbles in the last, 30 seconds? One of them recovered and one you guys recovered. So, and that was Melvin Gordon who fumbled. So the thing about that is the running game can get going. That's going to really open up the passing game for Russell Wilson. If you look at on paper, last year, the reason why we were unsuccessful, and like we've talked about, was our offense struggled. 19.7 points per game. Not very good. That was actually 23rd in the NFL. So that should improve with one Russell Wilson because he's going to find the open receivers. My only question for Denver is the fact of the matter is, can we protect Russell Wilson? We gave up 36 sacks last year. That's not terrible, but if you watched our games, and I know what happened in the Washington game last year, your defenders were coming after our quarterback. We couldn't block. And that's just the one question I have is, can this offensive line give Russell Wilson time to throw the football? Of course, my other key for the Denver Broncos looking at this season is third downs. We were awful on third downs. It just seemed like anytime that the defense had a long drive they had to defend, the offense would go back on the field and actually do a 3 and out. You can't have that. You got to sustain drives. But with one Russell Wilson, I think that's going to continue to happen. I think we're not going to stall on third down. I think it's going to continue. We're going to keep getting third downs, keep drives alive. And you know what that does to other teams? That just frustrates opponents, especially if you're playing a Patrick Mahomes offense. You don't want him on the field. So controlling clock, converting third downs is just key. And I think they'll be able to do it. So if we can do that, we certainly should put up more than 19 points per game.
Big time. I don't think you're gonna have a problem putting up some points this year. I think it's gonna be a tad bit different,
I definitely hope so because there were so many games where I think even against you guys it was like 15-13 or something. It was low scoring. And you look at that and you think great defensive battle, which is great, but I like some offense. You have to be successful in this league to score over 21 points, especially in the AFC West with Patrick Mahomes, with Justin Herbert, and Derek Carr. You have to put up 20-plus points. If you do 19 or less, you're most likely going to lose those games.
Yeah, and like you said, going back to our Halloween matchup, it was like watching paint dry. Wasn't the best,
No, it really wasn't. The Broncos came out with the victory, but honestly, both teams shouldn't have won that game.
Correct. Oh my God, yeah. So, your thoughts and outlook on the defense?
Well, the defense, as we talked about earlier, it was our strength of our team. We ended at 7-10, but if you look at the defenses itself, if it was just a defensive team and no offense, we probably would have made the playoffs. We were third in points allowed at 18.9. You're doing a great job if you're only allowing 18.9 points per game. Passing wise, eighth in the league, 214.8 yards per game. The rush defense was a little not the greatest. We gave up yards at 111.3, which isn't bad, but the problem again was the fact that the defense got tired. I just talked about how the offense would go 3 and out. Well, you can't have that, especially since if your defense already had a long drive, you can't put them back out there. It just looked like they were tired at times. I'm not going to say they gave up on Vic Fangio, but there were games where I was wondering if they had. But of course, it's a frustrating season at 7-10. But if you look at this year, it's going to be much improved. Of course, the defense is going to get their rest because of Russell Wilson, but we have the defensive backs who are going to be able to knock the passes down, pick the ball off. And Patrick Surtain, who was a rookie last year, who I was surprised by him because his dad played in the league, but it was just, he looked like a shutdown corner, which we haven't had since we traded for one of your guys, Champ Bailey. So he's going to be good. And then Ronald Darby he was suspect at best on defense. He gave up too many yards, but I think now the fact that the defense is going to be able to rest is going to give him more confidence. And we've got Kwan Williams, but if you look at the safeties, that's going to be the strength of this team, really, and that is Justin Simmons, and Kareem Jackson. Justin Simmons is a ball hawk. He'll do anything to knock the pass down, pick it off, basically another cornerback back there. And then you've got Kareem Jackson, one of the hardest safeties in the NFL. Now, my question is, can the defensive linemen put pressure on these quarterbacks as well as taking down the running backs on the running plays? Because we have pretty good players in DJ Jones, Mike Purcells, Draymond Jones. they have to be able to at least push back the offensive linemen, which will free up Bradley Chubb, Josie Jewell, and Randy Gregory to create pressure. We need to create more sacks. And by that, I mean, we had 40 last year. That's not bad. But if you're creating pressure, and both of us know this, if you're creating pressure, that's going to force the quarterback to throw the ball sooner than he wants to, or at least into coverage, which could be interceptions. The Broncos last year, they did an okay job. I was actually surprised at how many interceptions they had because the defense didn't seem like they were getting a lot of turnovers, but it was 13 interceptions and 6 fumbles, a total of 19 turnovers. But if the defense is going to rest, that's going to actually help these guys, see where they need to get to the quarterback, and those turnovers are just going to jump up. And we know turnovers are key, especially to put one Russell Wilson back on offense there and have a short field to actually score.
Big time, yeah. So, and we got 17 weeks on the docket for you guys. I know you got at least one, maybe two, or a multitude of ones got in the games that circled on the calendar.
I do. I mean, you look at it, we're playing the NFC West. So what does that mean? Russell Wilson gets to go home in Seattle. The best thing about this is it occurs in week 1. I thought it was going to be later on in the season, like week 4 or 5, but to put it in week 1, great slot for ESPN. You're going to have a lot of Denver Broncos fans watching it. I mean, of course, we know football is king, but still you're going to have Broncos fans watching. You're going to have Seattle Seahawks fans watching. It'll be interesting to see how Russell Wilson does with that crowd noise. It's one of the loudest crowds in the NFL. I know he's used to it on the sidelines, but he's not out there. It was his defense. And now he gets to go there to be an opposing quarterback, which will be very interesting to see. I'm excited that it's week 1. Get it over with. I think if it was later on in the season, we'd sit there and go, why isn't this game happening earlier? But at least it's the first game of the season. Get it over with. I'm excited for that. Of course, we know the division is going to be tough. Look at Kansas City. What have they done? Sure, they got rid of Tyreek Hill, but they still have Patrick Mahomes, and they've got probably one of the best tight ends in the NFL, Travis Kelce. I don't even know how you're supposed to cover Travis Kelce. I mean, he reminds me a lot about Rob Gronkowski. The difference is I only got to see Rob maybe once a year. I get to see Travis Kelce twice a year. So if you look at that, we get to play him twice a year. And honestly, if you look at it, the key game that I'm really circling for the Kansas City series is week 14. Because by that time, we'll know if we're heading to the playoffs or heading to be, another top 10 draft pick. The thing is, though, and I know we love Carrie. Carrie is our Kansas City person on our NFL carousel, but she's had the bragging rights for far too long. We have lost 13 straight games to Kansas City. Some of them have been close. There was a couple of overtimes, and some have been complete blowouts. But if we go to week 14 there, we have to be able to beat them to say, hey, we want to knock the Kansas City off from, the ranks of being the kings of the AFC West division. But then again, we'll see him again in 3 weeks after that, which is crazy that we play him in week 17. So we do have 2 shots to knock the Kansas City Chiefs off. I just think, again, we both know that these divisional games will determine who's going to go to the playoffs. And that is just a big game for us, especially since it's so far into the season at week 14. I mean, by that time, we could be 7-7, which wouldn't be bad, or we could be, 5 and let's say 5 and 9, if I do my math correctly. We don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, at least with the 18 game schedule. Even if we're 7-7 or 6 and 8, at least the playoffs are still a relevant thing, because of course, when, it was a 16 game schedule, 500 doesn't get you in. At least one game above 500 does get you into the playoffs.
Yeah, big time. Yep. So I got to ask you the $60 million question. And it is, in 2022, the Denver Broncos will finish.
I have 2 scenarios. If we're healthy and Russell Wilson, gives us more than 19 points per game, we'll go 12-5. I know that's a reach, but I just feel like if you look at who we're playing, Yes, we're playing the NFC West, but it's not as scary since we've got one of their quarterbacks. I don't think the Rams are going to be as good. They're going to be good, but they're not going to be as good. The Niners, who knows what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo. So I just think they're not going to be as scary. Yes, the AFC West is also scary, but our schedule is pretty lenient where I think we're going to go 12-5. Of course, we know the NFL is all built on the healthiest teams. If we're somewhat healthy and have a few injuries, I could see at worst 10-7 or 9-8. But I still think we get into the playoffs at that point.
All right. So playoffs, what's going to be the ceiling? Well, we also know the ceiling is the Super Bowl, but realistically, what you got?
Realistically, I think for us, especially with one Russell Wilson, even if we get to the wild card and lose in the first round, or I should say the wild card round, which is the first round, that would be the best. I mean, we haven't seen the playoffs since 2015. I think that would be a building block to say, hey, we're back. We're going to try to knock off Kansas City next year. But if we get to the playoffs, I'll take it. Even if it's a wild card round exit, yeah, that would be not so fun, but at least you got there. That's what you want, is to be in the playoffs. So I say I want to say first round exit, but it's the wild card exit I would take.
Okay. Yeah. So definitely we'll put a bow on the Denver Broncos preview. Jordan, definitely appreciate you for coming on. And tell the good folks, social media, anything that's going on in the upcoming plugs, plug away.
So, of course, I'm with Chris on the NFL Carousel, which is going to start week 1 on Thursday nights. I have my blog that I write Mondays through Fridays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com. I also have a live stream called Under Review where I talk about Colorado sports with a sprinkling of national sports headlines too. You can find that on my blog, and that'll be updated on Fridays.
All right. Once again, appreciate you, Jordan, for coming on this special Denver Broncos preview here on Couch Coach Live, our 9th annual NFL preview. Definitely appreciate it. And we'll have you on during the course of the season. You know how we are. We'll definitely have you on, and we definitely have you on the couch, the virtual couch, we'll put it that way, during the NFL season.
Hopefully it'll go a little bit better than last year, because I think I was on your show twice. I think it was for the Ravens with JJ, and we lost that one. Yeah. And then, of course, with the Washington, whatever the show is for you guys, the Washington. The
Washington football guys.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, you was with us. Yeah, right. That Friday before Halloween. Yep. 29th. Yep.
Definitely take a look at these guys. They do a phenomenal job talking about the then Washington football team, and now it's the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. And this wraps up this Denver Broncos preview. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.